For further analysis of the airline crash, we're joined here in our studio by former U.S. Marine pilot Justin Green. Justin, thanks very much for joining us. Do you think this was a mistake, an accident?
Well, that's the definition of accident. It's an intentional act. They intended to shoot down the airplane. The question is whether they thought it was a military aircraft or they understood, in fact, that it was a civilian aircraft. If they shot it down intentionally knowing it was a civilian aircraft, that's a terrorist attack. If they shot it down thinking it was a military aircraft, then that's just gross incompetence.
You've got a military background.
I do.
And with an aviation military background and a safety background. What sort of things would be got wrong when trying to identify a plane at that sort of distance?
Well, again, you have an airplane that's at an altitude that civilian airplanes fly. It's at an airspeed that civilian airplanes fly. It's the size of a civilian airplane, meaning it's a large aircraft. It's squawking a transponder code that should have told the people on the ground, assuming that they have the equipment, which they should have, to say that this is a civilian aircraft.
Presumably there's a protocol when this sort of thing, you presumably got if you have a battery and you're on the ground and you're doing air defenses with a military, you have a process you go through before you hit the button, kind of like infantry soldiers do, where they have to identify the target.
That's right. It's a rules of engagement, and that's actually a very important point. Is first of all, who's been shooting down? I think you have to look at who's been shooting down aircraft in that area. It's the Russian separatists. Second is any military, even if they identify that as a military target. The question is under the rules of engagement, are they free to engage that target? That target at 33,000 feet, at that altitude, that airspeed, is not posing a threat to the people on the ground in that area. So I would think that even if they had identified this as a military target, a Ukraine military target, or if it's the Ukraine's a separatist military target, they would not have engaged the aircraft if they had a proper rules of engagement.
So the proper rules of engagement is one thing. There's also the technology. Is it possible that technology was sort of so old that it couldn't do the job? I mean, I know that these missile systems sometimes don't work. I know that, for instance, in the Falklands conflict, the Rapier missiles just did not work. They pushed the button, nothing happened.
Right. That's always a point. But the systems are enough. Even the old systems should be enough to identify the altitude of the aircraft, the size of the aircraft, the airspeed of the aircraft, and it should have told anyone on the ground, even if they weren't picking up the transponder, that this was a civilian aircraft.
And very quickly, what's it like flying? You're a pilot, you're licensed. What's it like flying in a war zone? I mean, it sounds, even the thought of it sounds terrifying to me. How did you find it?
Well, the one thing I'd say is the pilots really didn't have any option here. Once they were put over the war zone, when the missile's coming up to them, they don't have equipment on that aircraft to pick up that a missile's been shot. Military aircraft would. They don't have a chaff system that they could have put off decoys to
that's avoid. That's where you put sort of hot burning stuff into the air, so that the missile goes after the hot burning stuff. Yes.
Yeah, it'd either be flares or it would be chaff, which is basically almost like aluminum foil that it puts off to fool the missile. But in this case, it's we're going to find out what the pilots understood from the cockpit voice recorder. And the one thing I'd have to say right now is there's a humanitarian emergency. You've got 298 bodies on the ground. The investigators can't get in to do the investigation, but also the body recovery. And as I've been involved in this before, and that has to be done quickly. And the families deserve to have their loved ones identified, and the families deserve to have their loved ones returned to them. And in my opinion, President Putin is the person that's going to have to make sure that happens, because it's in Russian separatist-controlled territory.
Let's hope that happens. Thank you very much,
Justin
Green, U.S. Marine Corps pilot, former, and thank you for your service as well.
Thank you very much.